Hey, my name is Jordan Coley, and welcome to my special song meeting series where I unpack the details of the songs from my album, Sparrow Flower. Just a heads up, all my songs are written from a Christian perspective since that's who I am, but I've also tried very intentionally to make sure that the way that I approach that isn't divisive. Or at the very least, that's not my intention. If you're cool with that, awesome. If you're not cool with that, I totally respect you, and honestly, I just hope that you'll choose to stay and listen anyway. But no offense taken if you don't. Today is all about track 6, The Table. To some of you, you probably caught the meaning of this song right away without the explanation, but for those of you that didn't, The Table is a retelling of a story in the Bible called the Parable of the Lost Son. You might have also heard this called the Parable of the Prodigal Son. For anyone that might not know, parables are stories that contain a lesson, and they're one of the ways that Jesus taught people during his ministry. If you want to read it yourself, you can find it in Luke chapter 15, verse 11. In this particular one, Jesus introduces the story like this. There's a man who has 2 sons. Contextually, to the people hearing this, it would have brought up familiar stories to the audience like Cain and Abel, Ishmael and Isaac, or Jacob and Esau. But in this, Jesus flips the expectation on its head. The older son is the obedient one, and the younger son is foolish. So this younger son goes to his father, and he asks for his inheritance early. He's got plans of going off and living his life on his terms, and some of you who've heard the story might have heard that this might have been highly offensive to the father, like the son saying, "Dad, I wish you were dead." But I've heard that evidence to back that up is kind of inconclusive, so do with that part what you will. Either way, it's not hard to imagine that this was still heartbreaking for the father to hear that his son wanted to leave in that way. The younger son then goes off to a different country far away, seeking whatever it is that he wants out of life, whatever that adventure may be, but he ends up squandering all of his money. After he's run out, there's a famine, and he desperately needs to survive. So he hires himself out to watch over a farmer's pigs. And while he's watching those pigs eat, his own hunger makes him jealous for what the pigs are eating. At this point, it's rock bottom. He finally has an epiphany, thinking, you know what? Even my father's servants were well fed, yet here I am starving. So he decides to return to his father and apologize. He starts by rehearsing this apology, saying that he recognizes that he had done wrong by his father and that he had no right to be considered a son anymore. But he hoped instead that his dad would have mercy and at least hire him as a servant. As the son was making his way back, the father sees his son while he's still a long way away, and he runs to him, quite surprisingly to the son, and greets him with joy. At this point, the son starts to say the lines that he's practiced, but before he can even get to that part about begging to be a servant, the father interrupts him and gives him a robe and a ring and restores him back to his place as his father's son. They throw a party for the son's return. There's a little more to the story, but this is the part that the table focuses on. The song is written from the perspective of that younger son as he goes off seeking adventure and fortune, only to find out that what was out in the world was just a hard time. It imagines what that son may have been feeling, and it could have been a lack of belonging, maybe living in the shadow of that older sibling that does everything right, trying to find an identity and wondering if that's where he needs to be. So he goes and tries to find out by experiencing the world. I think this is something that we can all identify with. We're all looking for a place to belong, and sometimes it really does take the journey to make us recognize the value in what we often and whom we often take for granted. And for some of us, myself included in this case, it takes a firsthand experience to understand that the grass really isn't always greener, even if it looks that way. This story is a beautiful picture of mercy, forgiveness, and compassion. And honestly, without going into too much detail, my life has had some pretty strong parallels to this story. So this song came together pretty naturally. Imagining the ways a son in this situation might have felt and to be forgiven is a wonderful picture, and I honestly hope that it gives you hope too. And that is the long and short of The Table. Next time, we'll look at track 7, Goalpost. See you then.